What if the influence you've been building for years isn't actually yours to keep? Most leaders never stop to ask that question. They're leading, they're producing, people are responding to them, so why would they? But here's the thing, a lot of what feels like influence is actually borrowed. It belongs to the title and not to the person holding it. And the only way most leaders find that out is when the title changes and the influence disappears overnight. Today we're going to change that. I'm going to give you a way to see it clearly right now before the transition forces the answer on you. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Modern Leadership Solutions podcast, where we help you lead with clarity, intentionality, and confidence. This is a further episode where I return to a past conversation and bring out what else is worth saying. Today, I'm building on episode 3, which was called Influence Beyond Titles, the Levels of Leadership. If you haven't heard that episode, I'd encourage you to go back and listen. I'll link it in the show notes. It lays the foundation for everything we're covering today. Now, in that episode, we walked through the first 3 of John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership: permission, position, and production. We talked about how influence grows as you move through those levels. What we didn't name directly, and what I want to dig in today, is this: not all influence is created equal. Some of it is yours, and some of it you're just renting. Let's talk about the difference. I want to start with a moment most leaders recognize, even if they've never talked about it out loud. A leader leaves a role. Maybe they resigned. Maybe they were promoted. Maybe the company restructured and their position was eliminated. Whatever the reason, they're no longer in that seat. And within days, sometimes within hours, something shifts. The calls slow. The emails thin out. People who used to seek their input are suddenly moving forward without them. And that leader is left asking a question they never expected to ask. Did I actually have influence, or did the title? That's a disorienting moment. And it's more common than most people admit, because we're not taught to ask that question while we're still in the role. We're busy leading. Things are moving. People are responding, and it feels like influence. And often it is, at least in part. But part of it is something else. Part of it is borrowed. So here's the framework that I want you to carry out of this episode. Borrowed influence is influence that belongs to your position. It exists because of your title, the org chart placement, your access, your authority. When people respond to you because you're the boss, because you control resources, because your name carries institutional weight, that's borrowed. It's real in the moment, but it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the role. When the role goes away, it goes with it. Built influence is different. It's influence that exists because of who you are, how you've treated people, what you've helped them accomplish, and how much they trust you. It survives transitions. It follows you. It compounds over time. Now, connect this back to episode 3. The levels of leadership are essentially a map of where your influence lives. Level 1, position, is almost entirely borrowed. People follow you because they have to. That's not a criticism. It's just the reality of where the influence starts. Level 2, permission, is where built influence begins. When people choose to follow you, when they trust you, when they open up to you, that's yours. You earned it. Level 3, production, deepens built influence through shared results. When you've helped somebody hit a goal that mattered to them, that's not something they forget when you change roles. That stays. The higher you move through the levels, the more of your influence is built rather than borrowed. But, and this is the most important part that leaders miss, you can be operating at level 2 or level 3 and still be carrying more borrowed influence than you realize. So how do you actually know where you stand right now? So here's a simple diagnostic I want you to run. I call it the Resignation Test. Ask yourself this question honestly. If I resigned tomorrow, if my title disappeared in the next 24 hours, who would still call me? Not to fill the role, not to manage their transition, but to get your perspective, to ask for input, to stay connected because relationships matter to them. That list of people, that's your built influence. Everyone else was responding to the title. Now, I want to be clear. A short list isn't a failure. It's information. It tells you exactly where to focus your energy. And it's infinitely more useful to know that now than to find out the hard way after a transition. So, a second signal to watch for, pay attention to why people seek you out. Are they coming to you because you have authority over something they need? Or are they coming to you because they value how you think, how you listen, or what you've invested in them? The former is borrowed, the latter is built. Now, here's a nuance worth sitting with because I think it surprises people. It's entirely possible to reach level 2 or level 3 to have real relationships and real results and still be over-relying on borrowed influence without realizing it. Here's how that happens. A leader builds a genuine relationships with their team. That's real, that's level 2. But those relationships exist almost entirely within the structure of the organization. The leader never invests in people outside of that direct sphere. They never build trust across the organization, with peers or with other teams. So when they leave, the relationships that remain are narrow. The influence was real, but it was contained. Or maybe a leader drives outstanding results. Level 3, absolutely. But the results were always framed with it as the company wins or as the team wins, never as something that grew the individual people around them. So when the leader moves on, people remember the outcomes, but they don't carry anything forward that came from that leader specifically. The question isn't just, am I at level 2 or 3? The question is, how broadly and how deeply have I built influence that doesn't depend on this role or title to exist? Let me tell you what actually happens to influence when a title changes, because I think it's important to name that clearly. Borrowed influence doesn't fade, it disappears. The day you leave a role, that positional authority is gone. The access is gone. The org chart weight is gone immediately. That's not a dysfunction in the organization. That's actually the sign of a healthy one. Organizations are designed to keep moving. They have to be. Built influence behaves completely differently. It doesn't transfer to the next person in the role. It stays with you. The relationships you built, the trust that you earned, the growth you invested in other people, that follows you to the next chapter. And in many cases, it grows because people see how you carry yourself through a transition. Here's what I have observed. Leaders who have invested heavily in built influence actually gain credibility during the transitions. The way they handle change with grace, with generosity, without bitterness, deepens the trust people already had in them. The transition becomes evidence of who they actually are. Leaders who are operating primarily on borrowed influence often don't get that opportunity because the people who were responding to the title have already moved on. So if you're listening to this and recognizing that you've been leaning more on borrowed influence than you'd like to, what do? One move. Start there. Identify one person you lead or influence and ask yourself honestly, what have I done for this person that has nothing to do with my title? Have I invested in their growth? Have I helped them accomplish something meaningful? Do they know I care about their success beyond what it produces for the organization? If the answer is thin, that's where you start. Not with a grand gesture, with a conversation. A genuine one. Ask them about their goals. Find out what they're looking forward to. Find out what they're working towards. Look for one way you can add value to them that has nothing to do with your position. That's the beginning of built influence. It's not complicated, but it requires intention. And it requires you to care more about their development than your own authority. Do that consistently across more and more relationships, and you'll find that your influence becomes something no title change can take away from you. The leaders who built lasting influence aren't always the ones with the most impressive titles. They're the ones who showed up consistently for the people around them, long before anybody was watching, and long after that role was gone. That compounds. Every relationship you invest in, every person you help grow, every result you celebrate for somebody else's benefit, it adds up. And it builds something that transcends any single organization, any single role, or any single chapter of your career. John Maxwell puts it simply in the higher levels of leadership. And we'll dig deeper in those in future episodes. But the essence is this: the most lasting influence comes from developing other leaders. When the people you've invested in go on to lead well, your influence multiplies through them. That's not borrowed, that's built, and it never expires. The leaders who last aren't the ones with the biggest titles. They're the ones who built something on the title never owned in the first place. That's what intentional leadership looks like. And that's exactly what we're here to help you build. If this episode resonates with you, share it with another leader you think might need it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps this channel. I want to thank you for joining me on this further episode of Modern Leadership Solutions. Remember, effective leadership is intentional, and it starts with you. I'll see you next time.